meeting of the Anderson District 3 to order. Thank everybody for being here, and we'll start off with a Pledge of Allegiance. We have a digital pledge being presented to us tonight by Ms. Boggs' class. If you'll join us.
Good.
It always makes me proud. That one there made me smile a little bit more. All right. Mr. Balknight, would you open us in prayer, please?
Yes, sir. Okay, everybody, let's pray. Before we start, I just want to say a quick word about some events here over the last couple of weeks, or last week or so. One of them, I just want to remember one of our former students in that accident on I-85 yesterday, and then also a former faculty member, coach, mentor, huge figure here at Anderson 3. As we pray, just remember their families. God, we love you. Thank you, God, for being so good to us. God, we ask that you give us wisdom, knowledge, understanding, help us to apply that to your kingdom here to District 3. Thank you for the administration here from the top down. God, we will ask for a special touch for the families of the ones that have been affected here in the last week or so. God, we ask for you. We love you. We need you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Next item we have is the actual consent of the agenda. I trust everyone had an opportunity to look at it. We can move on to the approval of it.
I make a motion we approve the
We have
agenda.
a motion to approve the agenda as presented. And a second. Are there any discussion? None? All in favor? Next item is the approval of the January 8th, 2024 minutes. And I understand that there is a minor adjustment that needs to be made.
Yeah, on the motion on going to executive session, Mr. Holbrook instead of Mrs.
Thank you.
We accept it with the changes.
We have a motion from Mr. Holbrook to make those changes and a second from Mr. Watt. Any discussion? All in favor? Fantastic. Here comes the exciting portion. We get to do some recognitions and some commendations now.
All right. I guess it's kind of interesting that the first commendation is going to be our spelling bee winner, because you see how much different S or not on the word is made. So, at this time, I would like to call Joseph Burton to the front. He is the 2024 Anderson 3 Spelling Bee winner, and he is from Ivy Elementary School. No, come to the center. And just make sure you notice there's a gift certificate. Okay, we also have another commendation from Ivy Elementary School, Ava Ware. And this one is special because Ivy just started an archery program and had a very big competition, and she was the winner, the Winter Warrior Archery Champion. So, way to get us started, and great job. In Anderson 3, we have some great teachers, and so we don't get to recognize teachers a whole lot, but we have a group of teachers who just received National Board Certification or their maintenance of certification. So Mr. Josh Gray, in recognition of receiving National Board Certification, we have a certificate and something else for your desk. And if you'll stay here, we'll take a picture of all of you. Megan Casey received National Board Maintenance of Certification. Congratulations. Angela Can, I think was out today, but she also received Maintenance of Certification. And Heather Smith received National Board Maintenance of Certification. I will tell you, this is a very difficult process. There's a lot of work that goes into this certification, and so we are proud of them for going that extra effort, and that y'all come in and we'll be on the sides. Okay, we're going to move to a special recognition tonight of some people in our town, county, community, and statewide who have helped us get to where we are. And so, just to give you a brief history, this is our second meeting in this space. About 3 years ago, I remember, I think it was the February or the March meeting, that the board and I walked outside and looked at this building and said, this could be a potential space to bring all of our operations together. We had a couple of needs in the district that we needed to solve. One was a parking issue. Since we built all the athletic facilities at Crescent, we needed a place to put the buses. But another issue that was probably larger is a safety and security issue, because our bus office is behind Crescent and the portable, and our IT office is behind Storiva, or was behind Storiva, in the old building. And we needed to be able to gate those spaces off, because we know it's a security issue with cars going in the back. Also, getting all of our operations in one space was needed. I'll give you just a brief history, just because I lived it, I guess. The last expansion of our district office was in 1988. Now, you asked me how I remember that, besides I just owned the other building. I graduated from college in 1988. Some of you, most of you are not as old as me. But in 1987, in the fall, I was doing my student teaching at Dixie High School, juniors and seniors. And I very much remember the day they called the juniors and seniors to the office at lunchtime and told them they would no longer be able to drive their buses. Does anybody remember when the students drove buses?
I drove one.
Those folks were upset because that was their spending money. I give you that example because the last time we built onto the district office, we didn't need a space for bus drivers because they were students. We didn't have internet and computers in every classroom, so we didn't need IT space. And so it's taken us, I think that's 36 years, if I count right, or maybe something in there, check my math, to get to the point where we have everything together. The other great problem we had is that when we recognized students at board meetings, we were overflowing. And so, talk to the board, talk to Tim Taylor. So Tim, I'm gonna ask you to come up first. Well, actually, let me back up, because Nakia is the first part of this. Okay, so I'm gonna call Nakia Davis up first. Hold up, Nakia. You have to stand there while I talk about it. Nakia has been our representative on the Anderson County Board of Education for as long as I can remember. You may know how many. But Nakia is instrumental every year in helping us with our budget prep and passing our budget so that we can do the things we do in the district. He meets with us every year and we talk about what we're bringing to the county board. He also, the county board, is instrumental in flowing the sales tax money through to us. So Nakia is an indirect part of this story because all of it has to do with financing and money. And that's really what the Anderson County Board does in a big way. So I want to thank you for being a part of this and for supporting us in our financial processes. And we have kind of a gift for y'all to remember that you're our partner in this. Now I'll call Tim Taylor up. Tim and I started a conversation about several things because in order for us to move into this building, I had to hopefully find a space for the library to move. And a couple of things for the library was getting it in a more central location so foot traffic got there easier. So Tim's a great partner with the district and the town of Ida. And so we started talking about spaces the library could be relocated. And of course, I would just open a great new gym, but you haven't, and actually that was an indirect part of the project because they had to relocate the antique body shop in the space in the new gym space so that we could free up the space to renovate. So thank you, Tim, for being a part of this. Also we have a great partnership with our SRO program and the other things that we do. Now, we couldn't have done this without Andy Sutton. So Andy, come on down. Andy is probably the key person in this endeavor because Andy is over the Anderson County Library System. And when Tim and I came to Annie with this crazy idea, she didn't slam the door in our face. Okay, and actually Annie is probably the most inconvenienced person right now in this situation because we work together to kind of float this idea of building a more modern library in Iowa and putting it downtown and allowing us this space. And so thank you, Annie, for being a part of that. I hope you can see the vision, and I told her anytime the library wants to do an activity in this room, they're welcome to, because we couldn't have done it without you.
I was just thinking I was sitting in the children's department.
Now, to a couple other people we have to bring in this equation because part of this process was getting the funds to make this all happen. Because we knew we had to be able to renovate the library. The district didn't want to have to pay for this building all the money that it would cost to renovate the library. And so this is where Jay West and Mike Gambrill came in. And Jay's sick tonight, so Mike, I'm going to ask you to come up. We went to Mike and Jay about 2 years ago, and they worked with us to write an earmark for $500,000 from the state budget to come to this program. And so basically, and then the governor vetoed it. And then Jay and Mike got it back through the House and the Senate to override it. But in essence, they saved the district $500,000 in this endeavor. So thank you for being our partner and taking care of us and making this happen. One other person that's a part of this process is Greg Elgin. So Greg, if you will come on up. Greg moved into the process when we were well into it. But I go to church with Greg, and then you'll be glad to know I hound him every Sunday about when are we going to start the library renovation. But Greg was on county council as the final business part was going through. Another piece of this that the county worked with, and Tim and Annie was writing another grant that I think is up to $1 million probably now or so to finish the other part of the building. And so part of this process has just been everybody working together to find the money. We're going to be excited in about a year to see the new library open in downtown. And so I just want to take time tonight to thank you all for making this happen and to let our community know what an effort it was working together to get this done. So if y'all give them a hand. And before I dismiss you, because typically this is the time I say if you'd like to leave, you could. I have put Mike on the spot to give us a short legislative. Mike, do you want to say a couple words about what you all are working on?
Sure.
Okay.
We're doing nothing to charge for this.
Cost money we're interested in.
Well, yeah, really, no matter what you hear, it's not near as bad or near as good as it always is. Listen, this is great. This is my first time in the field. And it's good. And, Kathy, you hit on it. Stuff like this happens when everybody's pulling in the same direction. And it hasn't always been that way. But, in the Senate, with Jay sends his regards, Jay's got the flu. I told him, I said, you stay at home, stay at work with me. But anyway, he sends his regards. He'll be up and going. But several things going on in the Senate. We passed constitutional carry last week, and I'm sure everybody's had all that, heard all that they want to hear. But trust me, we're not near as bad as we've been made out to. But it'll go. It went to the House. They non-concurred. It'll come back to the Senate, and that'll be a conference committee. 3 Senate meetings at a time. Never worked out good. they'll get a more chance to what we're talking about already. The big thing going on now, the House, and many of you know, the budget starts in the House. And they're already having hearings, subcommittee hearings on the budget. I think their budget week is around the 1st of March. And then we've already gotten started on ours. The budget will go before the House, the full House. They'll vote on it, then they'll send it to the Senate. We'll have our own budget process. We'll vote on it and discuss it, as I like to say, fix it. But, then we'll get together on a conference committee to come out. But the budget's always the most important thing we do every year. But that's where we spend the tax dollars and try to save them the tax dollars. But, like I say, the one thing, and this is what Jay and I like about our job. We call going to Columbia the necessary evil part of our job. We're Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, from January to May. But this is where we make a difference, where we try to make a difference. Every year they'll ask us, what's the good thing going on? For 18 years, it's been the last thing, same thing for me, it's constituency. We need to bring things back to the community, that positive way. And, I'll tell you, like I said, everybody's I talk to, you have a problem, state government, or an issue or something, you call us, we'll get you the answer, and get you the right answer. That's not always gonna be the answer you want to hear, but we'll get you the answer, and that's the very least. That's Mike Gamble, Jay West, to get that done. Job, taxes, and education, you gotta have a whole bunch of COVID with us. But I think public education's in a good spot this year in the budget. From what I'm hearing on the House side, I know it's good, it's on our side. Just thank you so much for this honor. It's just always good to come back and be with everybody and see everybody, and thank you for letting us do what we do. Thank you.
Mike, I think there may be one question for you from the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So one issue we've been working on is South Carolina school board members are the only elected officials in the state of South Carolina that cannot participate in the state health care. So I know there's some bills on the House side and with you guys on the Senate. I've been trying to keep up with that. I talked with Craig Gagnon on the phone just couple weeks ago, last week, I don't know exactly when it was, but that's one reason I was trying to get you on the phone while I was trying to call you. And Craig acted like maybe he didn't know much about it, but I just want to ask you where we stand with that, if there's anything happening on that at the moment.
Those bills are on the House side, they're in Ways and Means with Craig serves, and on the Senate side, they're in Senate Finance, and I serve. To be honest with you, I have not heard about a subcommittee meeting. The first process was a subcommittee here. I have not heard about a subcommittee here. But on the Senate side, we're just now starting to have our subcommittee.
Yes, sir. So that was, Senate Bill number 950 is the one that I was mentioning there. And I know that it started off with just a handful of sponsors, and I think a ton of you guys have signed up. I think it's in the 30s now to co-sponsor that bill. So I just didn't know where that stood, if you had any further info on that.
What we'll do, if President Chairman Phelan doesn't endorse hearing on it, we can write a letter asking for a subcommittee here, and then he can give us a hearing in 2 weeks. So that's what we'll do, and I'll check with the chief of staff.
That sounds great. We'll talk. I'll try to call you. I'll get you back on the phone. Yeah.
I've always told everybody, I said, the most important election you'll ever vote for in your life.
Yes, sir. Thank you for all you do. I know that's a lot of hard work, so I sure do appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, at this time, I thank all of our accommodations and people we recognize tonight. You're welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but if you would like to be dismissed, this is the perfect time to do so.
Move on to item number 7 on the agenda, that's citizens' comments, and we've got one person that has signed up this evening to speak. Forgive me if I mispronounce it. It's Tanya Penn, I believe. Tanya Penn. You'll have 3 minutes if you'd like to speak to the board.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya Penn. I'm a parent. I have 3 girls that's at Crescent High School. I want to address about with IEP plans. The IEP plan, if the student, how would we go about if the student asks for more timing of the IEP if she, if she's not ready, considering some autistic reason that she has, if she's not ready, if that test should be given or she's allowed more time to give it. And from my understanding, what I'm in the past history, allowing more time. So if she's getting a test and she's not comfortable and she locks down, that of course she's gonna fail that test. And she's getting another chance for another test, she's gonna fail that test too. But still, she's gonna get bad grades. That was just one of the concerns that I had. So if the teacher's not following the IEP plan, how will I go about it as a parent to deal with that? Besides talking to that teacher, particular teacher, which I have addressed, just haven't got a response back yet. Another thing I wanted to address was, I guess maybe I'm just too old school, but we have a lot of, to me, as early childhood development and going through the process of being a teacher, it's just some things you don't say appropriate in front of other classmates or peers about students that's not there. Because of course the other students gonna pick up that student is not there. That I have addressed, again, I haven't got the answer that I need. Let me just say I wasn't satisfied with the response I had got, so it's kind of made me a little concerned on that part. Another thing is, the programs that's out there to address that I have found for, not only my kids, but any other parents that I socialize with outside of school for depression, children that have been bullied or anything like that. How many times in this district that a student has to be bullied for a teacher or a coach to stand up and say that's enough is enough, and you still have this student there present in class. There's no discipline action is being took to the point that that student doesn't socialize with peers. How can we, well, let me just say as a parent, how can I address that with the certain teacher or coach, which I have done, still not the response that I was satisfied with. Because the student is still harassing my child.
Well, Ms. Penn, let me interject here. The process for that would be if you've spoken with the teacher, the next step would be to speak with the principal at that location. And if you're not satisfied with the information that you've received from the principal of that location, the next step would be come to the district office and then request a meeting with the superintendent. And then if it's nothing, you're still not satisfied at that point, you could request a hearing before the entire board.
Okay. I just want to do the right
Yes, ma'am.
process.
Yes, ma'am.
Like I said,
We just ask that you would give the principal an opportunity to deal directly with this, the teacher that's in place there first and follow procedures there. And again, if you're not satisfied with how the treatment or the results there, then the superintendent's office would be the next step.
Miss A.B. has been, I've been talking to Miss A.B. She has been calling me back with my concerns and talking with me about it. So that made me feel a little comfortable. It's been a while that I let this go, but it's just some current things going on. Like the children not being supervised correctly. That's just my point of view as a parent and as a teacher. You have plenty of room.
Yes, ma'am.
You have more than 3. So I figured,
Well, and again, let me interject that we don't, the board doesn't need to hear too much on this for us to be unbiased. At some point, if it does become before the board, and we have to act as judges and hear testimony, we don't want to hear too much information so we can remain unbiased. If you would follow those steps, and if it gets to us, allow us the opportunity to deal with it then, okay? Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. All right, next item on the agenda is going to be reports. And the first one we'll be dealing with, financial report from Mr. Moore.
Okay, we on? All right, thanks, sir. So, start us off at general fund. Want to take a look at how we are through the end of the month of January. At the end of the month, we are at $1,630,698 of revenues exceeding expenditures. Typically, at January in the fiscal year, this is where we expect to be, anywhere from about $1.5, $1.7 million is kind of the range there that we typically expect to be at. So feel good about where we are in the general fund. Looking at expenditures, really everything's flowing as we expect it to be, with the exception, there's one outlier there you can see on the prior year, that wonky looking percentage, that 258% there. That was due to last year we had to do a lot of the sewer work over at IVA, replacing and repairing some sewer lines. So that's one of the kind of outliers in terms of looking at year-to-year comparisons. So outside of really that one thing on the expenditure side, everything else seems to be lining up in terms of where we expect our expenditures to fall throughout this point in the year. On the revenue side, I want to take some time to talk about a couple of particular revenue line items. The first one being our state aid to classrooms line item. As we've discussed, this is the largest single line item of our general fund budget. It accounts for $15.1 million of our $28.8 million budget. So that's the big new funding formula that the state implemented a couple of years ago, and so we got the updated projections this past month in January, and I'm happy to say that as of right now, we're $305,000 above budget on that line item, based on the updated enrollment. Now, that number does not have that updated index of tax paying ability figure. So that, I'll touch on that here in 1 second. But the reason for our increase being over budget is a combination of factors, primarily due to our weighted pupil units increasing. So what that is our enrollment with the factors that are applied through the formula, how they get applied to the particular classification of students. So our ADM, our enrollment decreased by 13, but our weighted pupil units increased by 50. And that's attributed to our increase in our special ed population, our CTE weightings, and also our pupils and poverty numbers increased from the 135th day last year to the 45th day this year. So with our weighted pupil units increasing, that increases our state funding. And also is our weighted pupil units in proportion to the statewide weighted pupil units. Statewide, it decreased slightly. So those two moving in two different directions help us as well. Also in the January update was the additional funding that the state set aside for the health insurance increase and the retirement increase as well. So now we are on track to actually receiving what our allocation should be, where we haven't been in the past few months. But I have been on record saying that this is a very complicated calculation. It's one that even after this allocation came out, as hard as I tried, I could not duplicate it. So this past month, I reached out to the State Department and helped develop a calculator that we can use to actually make projections with and actually duplicate the calculation that they have And come to find out, they have pieces of the formula that we don't have access to. Like, for example, charter schools get factored into this whole calculation, and they get weighted differently whether they're brick and mortar or whether they're virtual. And that's information we don't have. And we didn't have information to the total pot of money that the state has for health insurance, retirement, and all the rolled up funds that used to be separate from the general fund that got consolidated into the general fund, like our career specialist funding, for example. All of that gets lumped into one number, and we're not given that. So once I got that information from the state, I can duplicate it. All that to say is now, after 2 years later, I feel like we got a tool that we can actually talk around with numbers. When our enrollment changes, I can tell you exactly what that's going to do for our funding. If our index of tax availability changes like it has, I can expect a decrease in our funding of $350,000. I couldn't say that to you with confidence until this past month, until the state gives us that information. So they are very receptive to that, and I'm very much on board with the calculator that we've come up with, and they're excited about sharing that with districts across the state. So that'll help us current year, mid-year, and also as we go into the budget year. For example, they're talking about teacher raises and how much money they're setting aside for teacher raises. So what we can do is they'll tell us the statewide amount, $250 million. I can plug $250 million into the formula in additional funds. I can tell you, all things being equal, that's $845,000 in additional funding for the district. And so then we can go into the process of what it truly costs us and measure things that way. So a tool we haven't had in the past, we've done a lot of work this past month and trying to get that established to help us mid-year and project as things change rather than kind of waiting on the state design for us. So my opinion is very, very positive development with this new very convoluted formula, kind of being against that and use that in a way that's useful for districts. The other piece of revenue I wanted to touch on is the property tax revenue. I've got a couple different charts there for you. The first one being what we have collected before the month end in January, and what that represents is the monies that have come into the county treasurer's office by January 15th. So that gets allocated to us several days after that. Just kind of showing you what's there and what's reflected on all the other financials we have. But the one I really want to focus on is the next one right here. So this second chart is what has come into the county's office through January 31st, but we don't record it until it hits our account available. So these amounts will get updated next month when we get the basic financials. But I wanted to show you this because we spent a lot of time talking about these assessment reports we get, and we've seen the value of the mill increasing and kind of wondering, will this turn into actual dollars? And this highlighted line here shows you that it did in fact turn into actual dollars for us. So we're $275,000, $280,000 above budget on that current line, which is your real profit and things that are needed to do with. So to me, that's a very positive development and kind of reaffirms those assessment reports that we've been receiving monthly from the auditor's office. So that'll be additional tool that we'll have going into the budget season. It also shows, you see across the board down there, the $7,287,000 is $700,000, where last year was $6,582,000. So there's still a way to go, but still positive development on the revenue side. That's all I have on general fund area.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Moore on the general fund? If not, we'll move on to sales tax.
All right, so last month we received a sales tax allocation of $266,829.56. Very, very strong collection for us. About $10,000 more than what we collected at this point last year. So it's still showing slight increases from last year from that perspective. So it's looking like it's continuing strong. It is the third largest collection we have received of the 105 collections we have received to date. So it's looking very, very strong. So, and I would expect, as you can see, go back. Just looking at the history of what February collections have been looking like, I would expect another one probably around $300,000, which has been the largest collection we've received to date. which typically that reflects, the spending done, in the county, around December, that's typically what we expect to see there. So I expect to see it pretty increase next month and then taper off in March. That's typically been a cooling off period for us on the sales tax collection. But we'll continue that issue there.
And we get the benefit of one more day in February this year. Yeah. One more day of collections.
Break it down to a per day.
Is there any questions regarding the sales tax from Mr. Moore? All righty, let's hear about the budget calendar now.
I've got in front of you just to kind of give you a general timeline of when to expect things to happen, and things have already happened already. We've met with our principals and discussed, some of the budgets with them. We've already taken a look at enrollments based on our 45th day, and of course, we'll update that, on the 135th day, which is March 8th. So hopefully, we'll have something for you next board meeting, which will be preliminary numbers, won't be final numbers, but we will have something to pass along for you there, and see how that affects our funding based on what we know at that point. And we'll be meeting with department heads later this month. We can kind of go over budget meetings there, and the rest is kind of just budget updates and as things progress. As far as timeline is concerned, kind of to piggyback on what Senator Gamble was telling us, the budget process at the state level, of course, starts in the House of Ways and Means. They are having their budget deliberations February 20th through 22nd. Then the full House will have their budget deliberations March 11th through 14th, so that'll be happening the week of our March board meeting. So probably won't have any final numbers from the House until our April board meeting. The Senate Finance will have their budget deliberations April 9th through 11th, and the full Senate will have theirs April 23rd and 24th. So typically, we'll know more as it gets there, but we won't know for sure until the Senate's fully out in the end of April, and we'll go from there. Only other thing budget related, I don't have much to quantify for you, just wanted to bring things in front of you just as we begin the budget, some things that are out there. Teacher raises being one, State Department of Education, their budget request consists of teacher pay increase of $1,500 plus 5 days paid at the daily rate. So that's one option. The governor's executive budget, which once got a little more attention, was $2,500 to the state minimum salary, which is getting from $42,500 to $45,000. And thankfully to say we're already above that minimum. Also, note in his proposed minimum teacher salary schedule was pay bands rather than individual steps like we currently operate off of now. So there's a lot of meetings coming up at the state level to discuss that and some of the issues that brings, having pay bands, and they're grouped in 3-year increments. And that's something that's going to be interesting to navigate from at least the PDR side as well. And also, in addition to the bands, they have it narrowed down to what is a bachelor's schedule and a graduate schedule. There's no bachelor plus 18, there's no bachelor plus 30, there's no doctorate. So
That ain't good.
so it's a lot going on there, and a lot of information that's got to be handed down to the
Feeding the
state
kid on
as far as their
teaching industry.
rationale. Again, just providing information. So that's on the teacher pay. One thing that is in the governor's budget that could be costly for the district was an 11.8% increase on the employer-only health insurance. We were at 3.7 last year.
Let's just shut it down.
11.8, so about triple what it was last year. So, and last year, if I remember, we were right around $80,000 or $90,000 hit to the general fund, 3.7. So, we're talking a couple $100,000. I would anticipate.
That goes to
so
savings.
it's a significant cost there to monitor and be aware of. And on the revenue side of things, we have received our projection on our Tier 3 funds, and that's the state sales tax, the penny that's what on the state sales tax, that came in with Act 388. So we got a projected increase of $200,000 there, so that's a positive there, for us moving in that direction on the revenue side of things. And the last thing, just for information, we received our annual letter from Revenue and Fiscal Affairs regarding the millage increase limitation, which basically gives us the state inflation, the CPI, which is a 4.12% increase. for last year for the statewide, we have not received that local portion yet. But 4.12% would equate to a 7.8 mil, maximum mil increase that we could be doing. So we got that letter, later last week, so just wanted to provide that information for you. That's out there. Again, as we move forward, I'll provide more information by hand to you. And hopefully with our new tool calculator, we can be a little quicker with the information.
Mr. Moore, are you able to quantify what the 11.8% increase in the insurance would look like? What kind of hit that would be to our budget?
A lot of that would take plugging in the actual numbers, but we were at 3.7 last year, and was that $90,000, a third of what that would be. So I'd wait to think 200 to a quarter million is off the top of my head, but I'll have that quantified for you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Moore?
I'm scared he might go up on something.
No, he's not gonna do that. Mr. Moore's gonna ask, the budget meetings with department heads, is that district department heads, school department heads?
Right now, it's a district head, anyone that would oversee the budget and the secretary involved. We advise anyone within the school to take any issues and needs up for their person.
And y'all have already gotten those needs from the January meeting? Okay.
Thank you. Next up will be the operations report. Dr. Nixon.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We can go ahead and get right into talking about our bus parking lot. Still working on the plan. If y'all remember the January meeting, we brought the plan that third-party engineers and our safety team suggested that we use a piece of equipment spec for DOT. That's the picture of what the piece of equipment spec for DOT did. It removed all the top layer of aggregate. Didn't take long in that process for us not to be happy with it, and the outcome and what it would do to the longevity of the parking lot was ultimately our biggest concern. Whenever you, aesthetically it does not look good, but whenever you remove those fines, the ability for water to penetrate that asphalt and then freeze, thaw to occur, it would crack it. We've had issues long term. So we went with another plan. We were simultaneously working on a plan for a milling process that would get us down to where we needed to be. That's the striping plans. We pull up the milling plans, and you've had an opportunity to see this, but the plan that the team finally decided upon was to mill out the sections and move those sections over to provide us the needed alleyways for buses that are 40-foot buses to be able to turn. So if you can notice the areas that are blued out with the red, those are pulls from line to line. So if you walk out into a parking lot now, you can see pull, start, stop lines where they actually have to lay the asphalt. So it was agreed upon for aesthetics and also for stability to cut and mill that asphalt out. So in this plan, there's going to be over 3,200 square yards of asphalt that will actually be milled out of those sections that are included. They'll be milled out down to the aggregate and down to the base. Binder will be replaced and those will be paved back, just like they were originally. We had mentioned possibly putting a cap on top of the parking lot. There were issues with some of the areas of the parking lot only having a 1% fall. You typically want at least an 1.5% fall. Now that's very, very limited over the course of the whole parking lot, but adding that 1.5 cap and trying to be able to guarantee that we maintain the same civil plan in a parking lot that already drained was an issue. Secondary to that, the third party who worked for all the DOT spec applications, he said that whenever you have an 1.5 cap, potentially when it got over 100 degrees, drive tires on the buses whenever they turn, as time, it could cause those areas to push and slop on. So from a longevity standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, everything but a convenience standpoint, this is the best plan moving forward. It will give us the product we want. It will give us the consistency we need for drainage across the whole parking lot, and it will look like a new parking lot whenever we're done. This is a 50-year project, so we want to move deliberately, and we want to move in ways that we're all proud of, and at the same time give the year service that we need. The next plan would be the striping plan, and I wanted to give a special shout out to Tracy and Sandra and Donna, because they spent hours on that parking lot out there laying it out with cones, trying to make sure that this design would work. And our transportation team is very, very happy with this building. They started last week moving the underground and some of the electrical components that had to be moved in this process. So it's going to be about a 4 to 6 week completion and horizon to get that done. So hopefully by the March meeting, we'll be able to give you considerable updates on where we stand. Anybody have any questions on the bus parking lot?
Doesn't look like it.
Thank you. The other agenda item that I wanted to mention was our spring federal program planning meeting. Again, that encompasses Title 1 through 5. That's scheduled to be on May the 3rd. We're going to be sending out information further on that, and you'll get your invitation letter as you do every year, like February 4th, will be inside. So just want to put that on your radar, put that on your calendar. That's on Friday. So, anybody, any questions for me?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nixon. Next up, superintendent's report.
Yes, tonight we are very excited to have Iva Elementary with us presenting their 2023 report card information. And I will commend you. I think you have the greatest representation of your teaching staff here today. So I will turn it over to Mr. Powell and his team.
Always working. Good afternoon, everybody. If you don't know, I am Austin Powell. I'm the principal of Iva Elementary School, and this is my assistant principal, Hannah West. We can go ahead. I wanted to start off with our mission statement. It's posted all over the website, everything, but this is our mission statement. The vision of Iva Elementary is to provide an academic foundation that will foster a love for learning in a safe, positive, and respectful environment. We will achieve this through rigorous, standards-based instruction and differentiation while creating critical thinkers and productive members of society. And year before last, we actually used this as one of our first PD days. Our teachers actually helped write our new mission statement. So this is about a year and a half old. So, and I did put it on our sheet, so we'll work through it. So to kick this thing off, this was our celebration photo from when we got our school digger ranking, and I'll flip to the next one here. So we jumped over 43 spots in 1 year, getting to 101. Obviously, the goal is try to crack that top 100, but we were in 101st out of 644 South Carolina elementary schools, and that put us in the top 16% of all elementary schools in the state, and it is our highest ranking ever at Iva. And so with that, I kind of wanted to pinpoint the climb, I guess you could say, that Iva has been taking since 2019 to 2021. Obviously, that 2020 year, there were no rankings there because there was no in testing that year. But if you notice there, starting at 2021 and moving up to this past year, 173rd place. So there has been a climb taking place, and you see it was about the same amount of movement in 2021, 2022, and then now 2022 to 2023. And then obviously you see those percentiles there too. But obviously we know what our goal is. We're going to try to crack into that top 100 this coming school year. I know we'll be able to do that. We've got a great group of faculty members. So, wanted to start here with some opportunities of how we kind of involve our community members and to kind of highlight some different things that we have going on at Iva Elementary. So, first, there are honors chorus. We do offer honors chorus to our 4th and 5th grade students. They do have to try out for that. Ms. Capps does a great job with those. They sing at different things throughout the school year. They've actually got a musical coming up, I think by mid-April. And then they always do a great Christmas program. I don't know if I mean, hopefully I'm not just speaking for myself here, but this was probably one of the best years, Christmas performances we have had from our honors course this past year. We also have a Student Government Association that features our 5th grade students. That was actually started by Miss Jefferson, who is now Miss Driver. They do all kinds of community events, partnerships. They take donations for different things going on, and they always support us when we do things for our teachers. For instance, this week on Wednesday, we've got a little surprise coming for breakfast for our teachers for Valentine's Day. So our student government students will help in delivering those items to our teachers that day, and they always help us out with teacher appreciation as well. We do have our after-school program starting up for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Actually starts up next Tuesday. We've got 10 teachers that will be working with both math and reading, probably filter in a little bit of language and writing there as well. Lots of different ideas. We're kind of running it 3 different ways between each of those 3 grade levels there. And then learning buddies, we have lots of community members that come in to see about 20 students on a weekly basis. So any day you may see them. If you come in, they'll be sitting out in the hallway reading, just kind of chatting with our students, kind of checking in with them, sometimes working on some things that they may need to get caught up on, things like that. Just like the other 2 elementary schools, we do have Good News Club, which is sponsored by Union Baptist. Our Beta Club, which kicked off this year, first year ever. We had a lot of good inductees this year for our Beta Club. And robotics, we've got Ms. Stone here tonight, but our robotics uses the VEX IQ. They have competed this year. We have a really good group of 4th graders this year that do that. And it's really interesting to see kind of the wide variety of students you get that are involved with that. I mean, there's always assumptions of students that you would see involved with that, but it is great to kind of let students who may not be talented in some areas be able to participate in things like that with robotics to show those specific talents. Had to throw in archery here. This is our first year. Coach Hall and I were certified last year to start the National Archery in Schools program, NASP. And so we have competed a couple times this year. If you see there, we are going to the state qualifier in Batesburg, Leesville on February 24th. I think the top 15 teams qualify for state. We'll see what happens there. And last 2 things there, Math Olympiads. This was something that our math specialist had started 2 years ago. And so I tried my best to keep this running this school year. So with math enrichment, I am pushing into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classrooms at least once a week. And I have pitted our 4th and 5th grade students against each other. Was it the last month we did a pizza party for the winner? And so what I'll do there is the group that gets the most questions right, you get 5 questions on the competitions, and the group that gets the most right as a whole wins that prize. So we had a pizza party for our 5th graders last time, which 4th graders were pretty close there. And then I always brag on this, but I had to include it, National STEM Day. If there's ever a day you want to stop by our school, National STEM Day is that day. Ms. Stone brings in a ton of outside groups. Wildlife Geeks basically brings a whole zoo into our school. And every time they meet with a group of kids, it's a different set of animals. It's amazing. We always get Clemson Extension, things like that. We have Governor School, just all kinds of groups that come in. So like I said, anytime you want to stop in for a specific day, that is the day to be at Ivy Elementary. I'm telling you, it is so much fun when we have National STEM Day. There's just a few pictures there, as you can see. The Wildlife Geeks there on the left, that was one of the animals he had brought in. In the middle there, Axel Sawyer, if you see him to the right of the table, in that bottom picture, he brought in a new incentive last year called Real Men Read. And so we invited a lot of community members in to read a story to each and every classroom in our school. That top picture in the middle was the archery team when we competed in Greenville a few weeks back. And then that top right was when some of our staff went to represent Miss Vicky in the pink walk. If you remember Miss Vicky, she is one of our former custodians who passed away due to cancer, and so we wanted to represent her there at Anderson University. Also featuring our superintendent there and Miss Fields' class, one of our first year teachers. They made some friendship bracelets with that 2nd grade group. And then we also wanted to kind of throw in here our school safety day. Each year we bring in the different safety departments, fire, EMS, things like that. and our students get to visit with those employees, and they get to see all the different vehicles that they have there. So we had a helicopter this year, fire trucks, ambulances, all kinds of stuff like that. So, and then here, just a few more things we had going on. Just from Veterans Day, grandparents lunch. That top right corner is when we had a block party from Hannah Vernon's crew at Joy Combs. They sponsored recess for us that day. So. All right, so I wanted to highlight a few things from our school report card from this year. So we were excellent in academic achievement. As you see there in both reading and mathematics, we were above both district and state averages there for the percent. So 74.5% of the school for reading, and then 59.4% there for math, which got us in the excellent category for academic achievement. Also wanted to highlight, this has been a couple of years in a row that we have received an excellent rating for our school climate, once again above district and state averages there. And then I wanted to include there at the bottom, I think that kind of speaks for itself, the things we do from trunk or treat to, we had a motorcycle rally last year for our one book, one school that our reading coach, Ms. Harbert, planned. So, we try to go above and beyond to make things fun, exciting, but also make sure that school climate is safe, but also enjoyable for everyone involved. And here's just a few more pictures of things going on. I do want to pinpoint that one on the left there. That is our birthday book cart. That started this year, and that actually is also in memory of Miss Vicki. So every morning that a student has a birthday at our school, they get to come up and select select a book of their choice from that cart. And then you've got one of our learning buddies there. There's Miss Stone with our robotics team. And then that bottom right corner is from our 100th day glow dance. Another fun time we have. All right, so jumping into some areas of growth or opportunities for growth here. So first, all of our elementary school folks are participating in letters training. So you see there staff members completing a 2-year course to improve knowledge and understanding for early literacy instruction. Our teachers actually do meet during their plan every couple of weeks on Wednesdays, and they go through each of those units, working with our reading coach, Ms. Harbert, and our assistant principal, Ms. West. So as you see there, we've got, we always try to do something kind of silly and fun, but this year we started what's called the Roaring Brew. So when we have our PD days for letters, you can see we've got our little coffee shop set up there. So instead of getting a coffee truck coming to school, we make the coffee there for them and have different menus and things like that. And then that was one from one of our past letters PD trainings there on the bottom left. So teachers collaborating and working together. And here is our main item this year for improvement, which is where we received unsatisfactory for student progress. As you can see, much lower across the board for all students compared to the district and state level. And then obviously the lowest performing 20% there as well. Didn't show a whole lot of growth. We received very few points, which is why our school report card rating ended up being average overall. So that being said, here's what we're working on. So instruction, obviously we know what our strength is. Academic achievement has been top notch the past 2 years. So we know that our teachers are the experts in the classroom. We know and trust what they are doing in those classrooms each and every day. So we tried to this year just take the frills off of all of the instruction and especially the intervention as well. And we've kind of just started targeting less students. By that I mean instead of having multiple students moving throughout the day, we're trying to target a specific group. And so as you see there, if you'll look at our MAP scores there, I did a yearly comparison from our past MAP scores there in winter of 23 compared to the year before, which was winter of 22. And so if you'll notice there that the top 3 there are reading, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. and then our bottom three there are third, fourth, and fifth grade. So beginning with that bottom 20%, as you see, we are improving. If you compare winter 22 to winter 23 in all areas in the do not meets. So specifically there, if you look at fifth grade reading, in winter 22, you're looking at 36.5% not meets. And then this past time when we took the reading math test, we were at 12% do not meets. So I think that comparison there speaks for itself, that we are moving in the right direction. We are trying to focus in on that bottom 20%. Also, if you see the math there and do the math yourself, you'll notice that if we can improve that do not meets area, what happens everywhere else? Well, those numbers go up. So specifically there, if you'll look at our fourth grade math, we were at 17% do not meets last year in the winter time, and then this past winter we were at 6% do not meets. And then moving up, obviously we've improved that approaches category, we've improved the meets category, and we've improved the exceeds category. Again, looking at fifth grade math, it's the same drill there. Cut in half that do not meets category. We've done better there, lowered the approaches, but we have improved meets at 47% and exceeds at 15%. You want to add anything about
With intervention, like he talked about trying to target, specific groups of students, I think letters have really given us the power and tools to do that, specifically with reading. It's opened our eyes to some assessments where we can really pinpoint exactly what's holding our students back from being proficient readers. And our interventionists, Ms. Harbert and myself, are using a program called UFly, which the other two elementary schools are using as well. But I think for the first time ever, we have all of these tools where we can really say, this is the problem, this is why the student's not able to read and comprehend at grade level, and giving us the tools to attack those weaknesses. So I feel like we are definitely, as a district, heading in the right direction with that.
And along those same lines, we have kind of switched around schedules with our fourth and fifth grade. We do have a specific 30-minute intervention block across all grade levels, K-5 up through fifth grade. We did kind of tweak our fifth grade schedule this year, kind of bringing their related art time, their activity time towards the end of the day, and then having their intervention time right before lunch. That's still a work in progress. Same thing with fourth grade. We did kind of tweak their schedule as well this year, just trying to get the most bang for our buck. Obviously, we're trying to get those core academics done as early as possible, but we also want to try to catch that intervention block as early as possible too, just so it's not wasted time, if that makes sense. I did have a little video here. I don't know if it'll play, but okay. It's fine. This was. It's okay. This is a little short clip, but this was Ms. Boggs' class. So you see there, they are holding their ice cream sandwiches that they were very proud of last week. So one area I don't know, the other schools I'm sure are just as hyper-focused on this as we are, but we've tried our best to start to pinpoint attendance. We have had issues with attendance in the past, and so if you'll look there, what we started with was we tried to have a week-long perfect attendance competition. And so that chart on the left there from December 4th to December 8th is when we had our MAP testing. And so we tried to improve that by giving a reward at the end of the week. And as you can see there, it actually did up our percentages there. We were at first grade, had the best attendance percentage that week, 85%. Second grade was the third was 76%, and then fourth grade was in third place there was 77%. But what you'll see there is that that number in the middle is how many students actually had perfect attendance. And we did true perfect attendance. So this is either whether it was excused, unexcused, tardies, whatever it was, this was true perfect attendance that we were focusing on. The chart on the right there from January 16th to February 2nd, we pitted our homeroom classes against each other and had a almost 2-week-long competition for perfect attendance. And I'm gonna be honest, doing that, if you look at those numbers, they were astounding. Percentage per grade level, but when I was running the numbers, I showed them to Hannah and I said, well, we can't count out that we had all 4 fourth grade classes above 90% perfect attendance. And if you'll count that, that's 8 classes that were 90% or higher perfect attendance for that 2-week period. So we are trying our best to reward good attendance, and hopefully in the long run, we're going to see that flip over to the academic side of things as well. But I just wanted to show you all that as well, because that is something that we are targeting specifically this year. And then I just wanted to end here with our ratings for each area on our report card from 2017 to 2018 all the way up to this year. If you'll note there, this was the most excellent areas we have had since 2017. Obviously, we do know that student progress area is what brought us down to having an overall average rating. We've had excellent, 2 goods, and then this year we were rated as average. And just to end here, glimpse into our year. Obviously, you see there in the top left, we had a couple of L's at the end here in Christmas break. That picture in the top center, that was from our Veterans Day program that our school put on that week. We've got pictures from our school dance, from our archery champ, our spelling bee champ. Owens Corning donated book bags filled with supplies for every single one of our students. So I need to shout out Owens Corning for partnering with us this year and next year as well. In that bottom right corner, with us doing a little groovy at our flow dance.
Fantastic, thank you. Do we have any questions, Mr. Powell?
Oh, I'll just make one comment that he didn't mention. Mr. Powell, and I don't know if anybody went with him besides Dr. Nixon, he did visit a school this fall that has gone from 101 ranking to 27, and also has an outstanding improvement rating. So that's his challenge and your challenge for next year, to go from 101 to at least 27. I think you can do it.
Well, I want to thank you and your staff. Appreciate the effort that y'all put in every day. I look forward to seeing the results of this next year. Thank y'all.
Thank you all.
I believe that's it. Next item on the agenda is going to be some action items that we have. Policy JLCC, communicable infectious diseases. There's our policy chair. I want to speak on this for a moment.
So, yes, I would, but I would also, I want to ask Kathy if she'll just touch base a little bit on why we're wanting to just change. This policy's already been adopted. As you see, it was issued 6/15, but we just want to make a small change to it here. But
Yeah, and Dylan, if you'll scroll on down to the highlighted part, in this policy, it's implied that students will be sent home, but it wasn't stated specifically. And so this change, if a student has active infestation, notify the parent or guardian by telephone, the student will be sent home, and then parents will be given recommendations for treatment procedures. That just makes it perfectly clear that the child does not go back to class. And I think that the implication of the policy is that the child would not. But DHEC exclusions does allow a child to go back to class if you can isolate them. And so this just specifically states that the child will not go back to class, will be sent home until they can get treatment. And the district has put some things in place to help parents who need especially financial help with treatment for lice.
I have to ask, why would we not consider isolating them and sending them home and instead of isolating them? My concern is what's the time lapse? How long are these students going to be out of the learning process? What's the pros and cons of isolating them versus sending them home?
Well, and this is just actually during the same day. If a child's sent to the office with active infestation, the parent or legal guardian is called. And I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time,
the parent comes on and gets them and goes ahead and does treatment. Occasionally, a parent cannot come, or maybe if it's a small infestation, they're allowed to go back to class and just try to isolate them. But it's hard to isolate K4 and K5 students. They don't isolate very well within a class. And so that's why it would be in the same school day that they're sent home, because they can't come back the next day until they have treatment anyway.
Do they still have to show proof of treatment when they come back?
Yes, they do. And we have worked, Dr. Nixon specifically has worked with a local vendor that if a parent has need, because that can be expensive, we've got a way that they can get the kit and the district can pay for it out of some of our designated funds to help students. And so that helps with that barrier too, that some of our parents do truly have. We just put that in place last week, I think.
Is it true if we got some students or families that may be being assisted with Medicaid, that it's covered completely?
It could be, yes.
That's what I think. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what that, I do, but.
We're mainly just trying to eliminate barriers, because we know it's a difficult problem with some families, and it's more prevalent in high poverty areas. And so if we can help with that cost in some way, that's what we're going to do to get the child back in school.
That funding that you mentioned, Dr. Nixon, and y'all have sought to get, is that for all students or just students that have Medicaid services?
That's for any, you have it set up so that if they, in the process of speaking with the nurse or whatever, if they run into any kind of issue with getting those medications, their vouchers that are given to those families that are redeemable with a local vendor, and just taking down barriers. The only thing the health department has it on hand at all times, and that is not the case, Leslie. In fact, calling them is hit or miss whether you're lucky enough, because I think they keep one or two on hand. So pursuing this other avenue and having this set up is going to be able to serve any family. When you already got something like that and the negative connotations there to it, asking them about their financial situation is even adding insult to injury in our opinion. So we want to just make it as fast as possible. And to your question, Mr. Owens, if we identify the student and the student is sent home with a voucher or whatever the situation is, they can effectively receive treatment on that day. Whenever they come back to school, potentially the next morning, they have to go have the nurse check them out. So with the kits and the ones that we're specifically using, it's more advantageous to send the child home if it's found out. Because this is something the child sits through most of the day. Most of the time it's found out. Our teachers are very, very observant. So if they see a child doing that, they immediately cue onto that. They know the kids as well as better than a lot of their parents. So whenever they send the child up, the nurse can make that reference, call the family, and then, like I said, they can receive treatment that same day. Nurse checks them out the next morning, and they miss less instruction in that model than the other.
Fantastic, thank you.
Question, Mr. Nixon. What if I got them nets or whatever you call it, the eggs,
Sir?
little nets in their head? Was that considered for a treatment or?
Yes, yes, sir. Anytime there's nits that are found or active lice, one or more, they receive these treatments. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was for 7 years, and I've heard a lot of phone calls since I've been in this job, and mayonnaise is not a treatment. I've had some horror stories with, kerosene that was put. Now, it worked great for distemper and worms with dogs back when we raccoon dogs. It's not good to treat lice. So having access to these actual kits that are designed for that is going to be in the best interest of our families. Plus, they got to come back in and check with the nurse, and our nurses are hypersensitive to this. Once they're aware of this, they'll stay in contact with the teachers to find out, and they'll check them again. Sometimes it takes more than one treatment.
Won't they have to clean their house at home too?
Not necessarily. That's me speaking in behind some experts that I talked to, and they said issue with the head doesn't mean necessarily treatment. And our nurses have all of these things prescribed to them about what they need to do. So if I come home with lice, put my pillowcases and change all my bed sheets anywhere that I've had head contact, And all of that's covered. Our nurses go over that annually, and they cover that for the families as well. In rare instances, we would call a potential exterminated family requested to try to do a whole house treatment. But that's very, very rare.
Don't give them no voucher to Marty's for a quart of carrots.
No, no Duke's mayonnaise vouchers, but, yeah.
It's just,
All right, any other questions regarding that? We need to, this will be the first reading.
The policy committee would like to recommend that
I'll say.
as it's changed,
Fantastic.
as written there.
The recommendation from the policy committee is to go forward with the change and approve that. Coming from the committee, we don't need a second, so we can go straight into voting since if there's no other questions. I don't think there is. All in favor? Unanimous. All righty. Next one's going to be the ARDJ-R purchasing.
I would like you to explain that one also, please.
Okay, I may defer this one to Matthew, but I will say this is a article in the administrative rule of our procurement policy. The state changed some procurement rules mid-year for us, and this change is really necessary immediately so that we can spend our title funds, especially in a timely manner. But Matthew might want to add a little bit more to that.
Yes, the recommended changes we have here is increasing our small purchase threshold. Currently it's $2,500 before you have to start obtaining quotes. And we're recommending increasing that to $10,000, and that lines up with what the state recommends in their model procurement code. And so that's kind of where we want to move it to start it to. So anything from $10,000 to $25,000 would require 3 quotes, and then from $25,000 to $50,000 would require 5 quotes, and anything above $50,000 would be required to be posted solicitation. So just requesting to increase those thresholds. Consulted with a lot of other districts, specifically the ones here in Anderson County, and this is very much in line with what they're doing. In fact, Anderson 2 is taking this exact recommendation to their board tonight. So trying to be pretty consistent across the board with other districts, and there's a lot of talk about this from the state. So even since we sent this to you, we got another virtual meeting on Wednesday to discuss this further. So they're really hammering down on this, and I think this puts us in a position to succeed, especially with our federal funds, but all funds.
Fantastic. Again, this is coming as a recommendation from the policy committee
Yes.
and doesn't require a second. Is there any questions or discussion? If not, all in favor? And unanimous. All right, and you have some appendix items. You wish to speak on those, Ms. Hipp?
No, other than these are the items that will go to the high school league when they do their big legislative session in March. You will notice the one that was put up by myself and our high school on 1 vote per school so that everybody's represented equally instead of 5A having a lot more say than 3A and 2A have. Don't know that it will get through the big legislative assembly, but if we don't try, then we know it won't. So, and some other changes. A lot of that is coming out of the competitive balance discussion. So at least we're getting some conversations.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session for personnel and contractual matters.
Make a motion, we enter an executive session.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to enter into executive session for personnel and contractual matters. I want to thank you for joining us. Those of you that wish to stay and wait for us to come out of executive session may do so. If not, again, thank you for your time. So have a wonderful evening.